Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. I'm Aaron Moats. On today's episode, when her children are kidnapped, Leia takes it upon herself to get them back, and her search takes her to the depths of the secret slave trade operating beneath the New Republic's attention. Meanwhile, Han and Luke investigate reports coming from a weird former Imperial space station of a strange alien being who possesses the powers to heal and to destroy. It's The Crystal Star by Vonda N. McIntyre. And joining me to talk about the book, it's friend of the show, Crystal, from the TK331 podcast. How are you doing today, Crystal?
I'm doing pretty well. I've got a week off of work ahead of me to look forward to. It's a nice spring day. I'm doing a fun podcast. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. The O's are starting to play better. That always brightens my day.
Good.
So they're back up to 500. So yeah, as long as they keep winning, I'm usually in a pretty good mood.
I'm going to pretend I know what any of that means. I'm really not a sports person. But I'll just trust you.
Yep. Crystal, on the last episode, your husband Thomas talked a little about how you two came up with the TK331 podcast. So I got it from his perspective, from a guy who has loved the expanded universe his entire life. What's it been like for you, having some experience with the old EU from when you were younger, but for a lot of Legends, this is the first time you're reading some of these stories.
It's always a lot of fun. Even when the books are bad, it's fun. I still have a good time. I have a lot of fond memories and affection for certain stories that I read when I was younger. So revisiting those, of course, like Thrawn Trilogy. I read and loved The Courtship of Princess Leia when I was much younger, and obviously I had a different opinion on it the next time through, but it's been kind of like getting to complete something that I left unfinished a long time ago. So that's fun.
Do you like moving through the New Republic era in chronological order, or do you think your appreciation of the books would have been different if you read them in publishing order?
I think reading them in publishing order would have left me more confused, honestly. I'm a very linear thinker in a lot of ways, so moving through it chronologically was probably the best choice for me. Of course, if I had been conscious enough to do it when they were coming out all, live, I probably would have just read publishing order. That's what I do today, but we'll never know. It's another reality that doesn't exist.
In either order that you read them, a lot of these old Legends books, if you're someone who the continuity is a big issue, you're always going to have some sort of continuity issues. Is it worse when you're reading it through in chronological order?
I think probably yes. There'll be one book where we've established, I think Han being a general, whether or not he's a general is one of the things that really fluctuates back and forth between books as you're moving chronologically. And you can tell that they just weren't sure they didn't have a big timeline up on the wall that they were following. So I've had to let a lot of that stuff go in order to enjoy the books more. And that's just an ongoing practice for me.
The other one that I kind of remember, there are some times when Leia is actively the chief of state, and other times when she's sort of like taking a sabbatical from chief of state, and other times someone else is acting chief of state.
Yeah. That really goes back and forth a lot, and without explanation, because of course in publishing order they weren't necessarily thinking about that. But in chronological order, it's really stark. It's like, is Leia the leader of the New Republic, or has she apparently given it up for a long time now? Because sometimes that's the implication too.
So I would say the one thing about my show, I don't do these in chronological order. I jump around. It creates some fun little headaches for me as I'm going through. One thing I did, I guess probably unconsciously, since I'm now entering the last year of the podcast, the last full year, usually I would just turn around to my bookcase here behind me and just pick a book and say, this is what I'm reading for the next episode. I guess I didn't really figure out until maybe last year that a lot of the books I had left were books that maybe were not my favorite. So I'm going through a lot of the tough books here toward the end.
That makes sense. Of course, if you're just choosing based on vibes, you look back and you see a book that you love, you're like, I'm going to do that one. You're not going to pick, I don't know. Tom's go-to for this would be Jedi Prince. You're not going to read Jedi Prince first thing.
Yeah, it's been interesting here coming into the last year and a half. Well, Crystal, I appreciate you joining me today. Before we talk about the book, however, let's take a listener question. Today's email comes from Tyler, who says, "Hello, Aaron. I've been listening to the show for a while, and I'm a big fan. I mainly listen to the episodes of books that I've already read and the ones that I'm currently reading. That would probably be about 60% of your shows. My question is, since a major emphasis of Sith ideology is placed on power and brute strength, do you think that any Sith before or after Darth Sidious would be critical of how he achieved the ultimate goal of supreme, unmatched power and control of the galaxy? Would they look down on the way that Palpatine achieved it through political manipulation in the shadows rather than through brute strength and violence? Thanks for being a part of my commute and have a great week." Well, thank you very much for the email, Tyler. Crystal, what do you think? Would the Sith think any less of Darth Sidious because of the way he defeated the Jedi Order and took control of the galaxy?
This is an interesting question because for so long with the rule of two, this was kind of the goal, right? Like Palpatine is the culmination of this long lineage of attempts to get in control. So on the one hand, I don't think they would look down on it, but I do think all of them, past and future, would think, why wasn't it me? Like every single one of them has got to think once he or she achieves the rank of the master in the relationship, they must all think, it's my time. I'm going to do it. On the other hand, Palpatine lost his power so fast, comparatively. He was in power in the galaxy not for that long. So I have to think that they would think, well, clearly he didn't deserve it. He lost it so quick. But he also wiped out practically every Jedi. So I think a big thing here is just that the dark side is based on those like greater demons of our psyches. It's all envy, it's all greed. I think they would all simultaneously be envious of him, but also condescend to him for all of the things that he did. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that last sentence is exactly what I was thinking. They would be envious. I mean, they would say, yeah, you should have did it this way, or you should have just destroyed everyone. I just think they'd be envious that he is the one who did it.
Yeah. They missed their chance.
Exactly. Thank you very much for the email, Tyler. Listener, if you'd like to ask a question, you can send me an email at swlegendslounge@gmail.com or send me a message on Blue Sky, Instagram, or Twitter at swlegendslounge. And if you'd like to get your voice on the show, just record a short message and email it in, but please record it in MP3 audio format. Now, coming up at the end of the show, I have another Star Wars character group to read. It's from Jeremiah, who wanted to share his ideal Star Wars NASCAR team. That's a little different for the show. You want to stick around for that. But now it's time for today's book, The Crystal Star by Vonda N. McIntyre. Listener, grab yourself a drink. Let's head in to the Star Wars Legends Lounge.
The story begins on the planet of Munto Kodru. Leia wakes up in a panic. Someone has stolen her children. Leia was on Munto Kodru as part of a diplomatic mission across the Outer Rim. She was taking a rest day with her children and Chewbacca, enjoying an afternoon playing with Jaina, Jason, and Anakin in the forests and pools in the Montokodru countryside. But Leia's peaceful afternoon was shattered when someone detonated a pressure bomb, knocking everyone in the area unconscious, and kidnapped the children. Leia is frantic, but the Chamberlain of Montokodru tries to reassure her. Montokodru is known for political kidnappings. The children will be returned for a ransom. But Leia knows in her gut that the Chamberlain is wrong. Someone using the dark side of the Force took her children.
Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, Han and Luke arrive at Crescia Station, a former Imperial research facility orbiting one of the strangest star systems anyone has ever seen. A white dwarf star orbits an enormous black hole. The black hole is devouring the white dwarf, but weirdly, as the star is slowly dying, it seems to be freezing. The system emits a tremendous amount of radiation. So far, the shielding on Crescia Station is holding up, and it's become an outpost for some less than legal activities after the fall of the Empire. Han and Luke are investigating rumors of unusual things happening on Crescia Station, strange, magical things. Things Luke hopes may lead him to a hidden Jedi.
The Solo children find themselves alone in a dark room. Their heads hurt, and 3-year-old Anakin is crying. 5-year-old Jaina tries to calm her little brother while her twin brother Jason slowly wakes up. Jaina tries to take charge of the situation. She's the oldest. It's her job to find her mother and Chewie. As the children begin looking around the room, a tall, beautiful man with striped hair enters the room. Children, something terrible has happened, the man says. An earthquake on Montokodru. Your parents and Uncle Luke were killed, but I arrived just in time to save you. The man says his name is Lord Hethrir and introduces himself as the children's hold father. Hethrir tells the children he'll take care of them now, but Jaina senses something off about the man. He's lying, and it's up to Jaina to figure out why.
Leia waits until the morning, but no ransom demand arrives. Against the Chamberlain's advice, she leaves Montokodru with Chewie and R2. Using the Force, Leia can feel the direction the kidnappers took to leave the system. She jumps to hyperspace, but the trail is soon shattered by a feeling of tremendous pain and loneliness. Leia's ship reverts to real space in an empty area of space. Confused, she begins searching for the trail she was following. She finds no trace of the kidnappers, but floating in the void, Leia and Chewie discover dozens of huge passenger liners. Slave ships, Chewbacca roars. But all the inhabitants should be frozen in suspended animation during their voyage. Someone's awake, Leia thinks, and they're in tremendous pain.
Han and Luke meet their mysterious contact, Zaviri, a former girlfriend from Han's past. The Empire killed Zaviri's husband and children before Han met her. Since then, she's been taking revenge on former Imperials hiding throughout the galaxy. Zaviri tells Han and Luke that she was tracking someone called the Imperial Procurator of Justice to Crescia Station when she discovered something she thinks could be a threat to the entire New Republic. When Han and Luke ask Zaviri for more information, the woman says they wouldn't believe her. They need to see it for themselves.
Hethrir splits up the Solo kids, locking up Jason and Jaina with a bunch of other Force-sensitive children, feeding them gruel, and forcing them to take classes touting something called the Empire Reborn. The children are kept in line by a group of Force-sensitive teenagers called Proctors. Jaina thinks the Proctors are mean. Hethrir keeps little Anakin by his side, tended to by a young teenager named Tigris, who Hethrir treats pretty badly. Jaina and Jason try to lead a revolt, but when the children escape the schoolhouse and run outside, they find themselves stuck on a world craft, a tiny man-made planetoid that can travel through space.
Leia and Chewie disguise themselves as a pair of bounty hunters and enter one of the slave ships. They pass hundreds of people in cryogenic freeze until they find the source of the pain, A tall woman with striped hair hanging on the wall with dozens of nutrient filaments coming out of her body. Leia and Chewie free the woman. Her name is Rilau. She's a near human species called a Ferrario. Rilau says her people were enslaved by the Empire, and their planet was sterilized by the Procurator of Justice. When Leia says she found the slave ships while looking for some missing children, Rilau says her son was also stolen. She says they should head to the planet Chalcedon, a world just outside of the New Republic with information about the galactic slave trade.
Zaviri leads Han and Luke to what appears to be a strange religious ceremony. Groups of supplicants surround a golden altar with at least one member of each group appearing to be badly sick or injured. As Han and Luke scan the crowd, the altar moves and speaks. It's a being, a creature named Waru, made up of gold and red fluid held together by golden shields. Waru calls a group of Zephylophils forward, who place their ailing member on the stage in front of the creature. Han and Luke watch in terror as Waru's body reaches toward the Zephylophil, engulfing it, swallowing it. Waru's body expands, its shields clang, and a beautiful tone rings out throughout the theater. Waru contracts, and the Zephylophil emerges in perfect health.
Tigris tries to keep Anakin calm while Hethrir holds court for 3 of his patrons. The Lord offers his supporters the chance to purchase the non-human children on the Worldcraft, but he sets an exorbitant price. When one of the patrons questions the amount, Hethrir strangles him with the Force. The 2 remaining supporters immediately begin bidding against each other until Lady Uchi wins the slave auction. Tigris looks at Hethrir with awe, hoping to one day contribute to the Empire Reborn. When the court is finished, Hethrir orders Tigris to gather up Anakin and prepare to depart the Worldcraft to head to Asylum Station.
Leia and Rilau arrive on Chalcedon and make inquiries about stolen children and where they may be sold into slavery. They don't find any information about the children meeting the descriptions of the Solo kids or Rilau's son, but they do learn that slaves are moving through a former Imperial satellite called Asylum Station. The 2 head off to continue their search, but not before their informant gives them a warning. Something strange is happening at Asylum Station.
The day after watching Waru heal the Zephylophil, Han heads back to the theater to find Zaviri. He arrives as another ceremony begins. This time, Waru welcomes a group of Ithorians forward. The Ithorians place a sick child on the dais and ask the alien being to heal him. Han watches again as Waru engulfs the Ithorian child. The shields clang, but this time the sound is ugly, distorted. Waru roars, and Han watches in horror as the alien contracts, leaving the Ithorian child crumpled on the dais, dead. Zaviri appears and touches Han's shoulder. "You see, Solo," Zaviri says, "Waru is dangerous. Now you know why I contacted you."
As Leia heads to Asylum Station, she feels something from the Force and drops out of hyperspace. Rilau demands to know what she's doing when Leia points out of the viewport, directly ahead, a world craft. Rilau says the Emperor gave the Procurator of Justice a world craft himself. Leia heads down to the planetoid and discovers Jaina and Jacen and more kidnapped children. Leia, Chewie, and Rilau free the kids and lock the teenage proctors up in the children's cells. They take Jaina and Jacen on Leia's ship, and the twins tell their mother Anakin's not there. Lord Hethrir took him away. "Hethrir?" Rilau jumps at the name. "Did he have another boy with him?" she asks. "Tigris," Jaina says. "They both had striped hair like you do."
Han, Luke, and Zaviri stand on the hills above Waru's theater, talking about what to do about the creature. They watch as another procession of people enter Waru's lair. But this one's different. A tall person in a flowing white robe marches into the theater, followed by several wealthy-looking humans, accompanied by alien children, and a group of young humans in blue robes. And at the back of the procession, Han spots a boy leading a toddler by the hand. Luke, Han whispers, pointing at the toddler. That's Anakin. Han sprints down the hill, desperate to save his son. Han, someone shouts from the left. It's Leia. She's running after the procession, leading Chewie, the twins, and another woman with striped hair like the tall man in the white robe. What are you doing here? Han asks. He took the children, Leia shouts, pointing into the theater. I found Jaina and Jason, but we need to save Anakin.
Our heroes enter the theater as Hethrir offers Anakin to Waru. The golden creature reaches for the toddler, when suddenly, Tigris jumps onto the dais. The teen grabs Anakin and pulls him away from Waru. The alien roars, and the scene descends into chaos. Han and Leia take Anakin from Tigris. The slave children turn on their masters. They break free, and along with Chewbacca, the children overwhelm the proctors and trap them in a corner of the theater. Elsewhere, Ralau confronts Hethrir. He calls Ralau a traitor, but she looks at Tigris and reveals her secret. She is Tigris's mother, and Hethrir is his father. They're both Force users who fell in love years ago. They had a son, Tigris, but much to Hethrir's shame, the boy has no talent with the Force. Hethrir furiously attacks Ralau. He's about to kill her when Luke leaps onto Waru's dais. The Jedi Master pleads with the alien to take him. Han and Leia turn toward the platform, just as Waru envelops Luke.
Leia dives after Luke, and Han follows. Our heroes move down through the gold and red fluid. Luke nears a black opening. Leia reaches out to her brother. If he reaches the void, they will be annihilated. Just then, the three hear Jaina, Jason, and Anakin crying out to them. Their voices bring Luke out of his trance, and our heroes swim up through the golden liquid and burst out onto the dais. Enraged and in pain, Waru lunges at the nearest Force user, Hethrir. The gold alien consumes the Ferrario and then winks out of existence. The story ends with the white dwarf star freezing into a quantum crystal. It's ripped apart by the black hole and explodes, just as our heroes jump to light speed and send Cresea Station into hyperspace, bound for Muntu Cordru.
Time to take a break. When Crystal and I return, we'll talk more about the Crystal Star. I'm Aaron Moats. You're listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. Thank you for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge, where we celebrate the books from Star Wars Legends. But allow me to recommend a book from Star Wars canon. Cataclysm continues the story of Phase 2 of the High Republic. The fighting continues between the worlds of Iram and Arano. The Jedi think the situation is being manipulated by a mysterious group called the Path of the Open Hand. The Path claims the Force should be free to guide all peaceful people in the galaxy, but Jedi Knight Gela Natai believes the group's leader has a much more sinister plan to grab power for herself. Will Gela unravel the mystery before the Path turns the galaxy against the Jedi Order? Find out in Cataclysm by Lydia Kang. Welcome back to the Star Wars Legends Lounge, the show that celebrates the books from Star Wars Legends. And today I'm joined by Crystal from the TK331 podcast, and we're discussing The Crystal Star by Vonda N. McIntyre. So let's get this out of the way. First things first, Crystal, yes, I did invite you on the show because the book is called The Crystal Star, and I wanted some synergy. I wanted some synergy there. So
Fair.
What are your overall thoughts about the book? As I said before, it is usually one of the more maligned stories in Legends.
It is not one of my favorites. I think that the characterization of Luke and Leia in particular is pretty bad. Waru is pretty weird. But I do really like the kids' storyline in this book. I found, action girl Jaina very appealing. She's a little bit too competent still to me for a 5-year-old, but her sections are super fun to read. She's got her little multi tool. She's figuring out how to organize her siblings uh, and all of the other kids. She's just kind of a delight. It's just kind of mid for me, I think, overall.
Sure.
I know that you are more fond of this book than a lot of folks are, though.
Yeah, I think I sort of overcompensate a little bit. I I don't want people to get the wrong opinion. I don't think this is one of the better books in Legends at all. I just don't think it's one of the 2 or 3 worst. I can think of about 7 or 8 books right off the top of my head that I like less than this story. But mid is a great description. It's at best a C. It's probably a C minus story if we're doing a grading scale. I think the strongest story probably is the kids. I do like the way McIntyre writes those sections of the story as though she's talking to a child. Those sentences are very simple. It's like the way a 5-year-old would think about what they're doing.
Yeah, the narration changes to match the POV character.
Yeah, I do like that. I think I like Leia's storyline a little more than you do, but I do think that Han and Luke's storyline on Crescia Station is probably the weakest, just from their characters' point of view. I do find Waru and his weird cult a little interesting, but for someone that is a Luke fan, like I am, Luke's characterization in this book is just weird. It's just strange. It's almost like he is going insane most of the story.
Yeah, that is the issue I have with it too. There's parts where Han walks multiple times. Han walks into their hotel room and Luke is just sitting there in the dark, turning his lightsaber on and off like a serial killer. He's just he's waiting. And he keeps saying that he feels blind and deaf because his connection to the Force is being interfered with, and that's because of the star and because of the celestial stuff that's going on in the system.
Which is one thing I would like explained a little more. That part is a little...
It's thin.
It is. And it is one of those things that I have criticized Legends about in the past, is I don't think in the old EU they do a very good job describing how the Force works, sort of in relation to the way that Lucas envisioned the way the Force worked.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that just because his Force senses are being disrupted, Luke should all of a sudden be super suspicious of Han's interactions with a woman he knew years ago. His outraged on behalf of my sister's honor kind of attitude really was very off-putting to me. It did not feel like Luke at all. I was like, you can't trust your oldest friend just because you can't tell whether or not he's lying through the Force. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he and Zachary are just having conversations. It's not like they're doing anything. They're just talking to each other.
One night, they're like, Han is very disturbed by the child dying, which you can understand given that he has 3 children of his own. And Zaviri, comforts him, and they're in the hotel room alone. And Luke finds that very sus. But, Luke, were you going to comfort him? Because you don't seem to be all there at the moment.
So, since we both think that the kids' storyline is probably the strongest in the book, let's start with that one. Jaina Solo, Child of Action. What were some of the examples in this storyline that were appealing to you with the way Jaina was portrayed?
It starts really early. Right when they meet Hethrir, Jaina has been thinking about how she's the oldest by 5 minutes. She's 5 minutes older than Jason. And so she needs to help her siblings. And Hether's telling them, I'm your old father. You've never met me. And she says something about, oh, of course, like you would remember that Jason was born first. And he agrees with her and moves on. And she immediately connects that to, but I was born first. So you're a liar. And I need to get to the bottom of this. And my mother is not dead. And Chewbacca is not dead. And you didn't even know that Uncle Luke wasn't on Monto Kodru with us. So she cleverly, like, she kind of signals to Jason to not react to that and to keep it to themselves so that she can get to the bottom of what's going on here and how they can escape.
You had mentioned the multi-tool. She decides to, every night in her little cell, the doors are wooden. I'm not exactly sure about that in Star Wars myself, but they're wooden doors that she is able to pick away with until she is able to open the latch. And then she starts a jailbreak, essentially, with the kids. It's another example. And the entire time, she keeps thinking, I have to return to Mama, to Papa. But before I can do that, I've also got to save Anakin. I'm the responsible one. I'm the oldest. It's my job to get Anakin back.
It's so sweet, but I also feel, oh, this poor child. It is not your responsibility. But I can see how, she has these illustrious figures as parents. She's an inheritor of the Force. Like she is the next generation of Jedi. And she has to feel that responsibility so deeply, even as a 5-year-old. It's very sweet, but it's also very, I just feel for her.
One part of the kids' storyline that I skipped in the plot summary is the way they finally escape. There is some sort of large lizard living on the world craft. They describe this thing as a pretty small planetoid, basically the size of a big ship. But I guess there's an atmosphere. Somehow it can sustain an atmosphere. It has its own sun that revolves around it. I don't know why Hethrir would populate it with a large lizard that the kids call a dragon. But Jason is able to convince the dragon to help the kids, and they get away from the Proctors, and they're able to run off into the countryside until Leia finds them eventually. This part of the storyline is a little too fairy tale for me. What did you think of it? And do you think it was included because this point of view was told sort of like a child's point of view? Is the thing that Jason and Jaina seeing actually kind of what they're seeing, or is this their imagination coming up with the dragon and the swamp and, all the stuff that takes place when they escape?
I think that's an interesting idea, but because the older kids, and I think even some of the adults, talk about the dangerous lizard, I feel as if it must actually be there, but that opens up, just like you said, why is this lizard here? Why would Hethrir populate his completely false world with something like that if it was not going to be always hostile to the prisoners there? And I think the answer is simply because the plot needed it to be there. It needed a big creature for Jason to connect with and carry the kids away.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I didn't take into account the fact that the Proctors also talk about the dragon. So I guess it's not something that just a 5-year-old would come up with. If these, 15 to 18-year-old teenagers are also talking about it, then it's obviously there. At one point I was thinking, is this really what's happening, Or is this some sort of adventure story that Jaina is making up for their escape? And maybe that would have worked better a little, you know?
I think it probably would have. I think you could also look at this as the Proctors are lying about it. Like they're telling the kids that, oh, there's a lizard out there and it's going to eat you. And that's then the story that the kids tell themselves as they're running away to the swamp. They're saying, oh, we've turned the lizard against the Proctors. We're riding it away, but it's not really there.
But then we do have the one last problem of when Leia finally shows up, when she's flying over the planetoid.
Yes.
She does mention a large lizard splashing around in the water.
But Leia is in the middle of her own complete mental break. So it's possible that she just heard something from her kids and she takes it on board.
Maybe. Let's talk about that now, because we differ in our opinion of the Leia storyline in this book. I like it more than you do, I think. Leia assumes the alter ego of a bounty hunter named Lelila and gives Chewbacca the name Gahab as they try to remain undercover. What is it about this storyline that you are not a fan of? And are there parts of it that do work for you?
I think it's a good idea for them to try to be undercover, for sure. I think the parts that don't work for me are that it seems so clear that Rilau clocks very early that Leia is not an experienced bounty hunter. It's clear that the way that she's behaving doesn't really mesh with what she claims that she's doing. So it makes Leia seem a little incompetent to me, which I don't love. I think that Leia is a super competent person. So I know that she's dealing with a lot right now. Her kids have been kidnapped for like the 6th time.
Well, this one actually works. Most of the time it's a danger that they're going to be kidnapped. This is one of the few times where someone actually takes them.
Yeah, it's true. I think if her internal narrative had spent a little bit more time being more explicit about her thinking, I just can't take this anymore. I can't take the constant threats to my family. I've already lost everything more than anyone should ever lose. I lost my home planet. I lost my father. I lost my mother. And even now with the Empire gone, the universe will not leave me alone. If there had been like a little bit more narration kind of taking her down into this dark place where she assumes this identity that she frankly seems very lost in, like she seems like she's really become absorbed into this other personality almost as like a coping mechanism, then I would have bought it a little bit more. I will be honest with you, though, the biggest red flag and a thing that I just literally can never forgive, and this is just a personal pet peeve of mine. She has knee-length hair in this book, and as part of her bounty hunter disguise, she leaves it unbound, just floating around her the entire time. I can't.
Makes it hard to move.
Yeah, it just doesn't make it. No wonder Rilau clocked her immediately. No bounty hunter would do that.
So, I'm not saying that this is the best plot line in Legends. I think the reason I've always liked this plot line a little is particularly in the early Legends stories. I'm not going to count the ones that took place in the comic books in the 70s or in some of the stories in the 80s. But let's say from the start of 1991 with Heir to the Empire up through about 1999, most of the decade of the 90s. This is one of only 2 stories that I can remember where Leia takes like an active role in doing something. A lot of the other ones, stuff just happens to her. She's sort of a passive member of a plot line of any action that happens. It's this plot line where she decides she's going to search for her children. She's going to try to bring them back. And the only other one I can think of right here off the top of my head is in Dark Force Rising when she helps try to convince the Noghri that the Empire has actually been keeping them in sort of a level of slavery to them. But those are the only two that I can think of in like an 8-year span of the Legends books at that time. And that's maybe I'm just looking for something, some good plot line for Leia, and maybe that's why I'm not going to say maybe I overestimate this plot line, but that's why I've always enjoyed it.
That's fair. She does often have to take a back seat because she's in the chief of state role. So she's in the background, allegedly doing politics, and we just don't hear from her.
Or like in the courtship of Princess Leia, she's kidnapped.
Yeah.
She's not an active participant in what Han is doing. You know, it just seems like a lot of the stories, you're right, it's a little difficult when a lot of Leia's storylines take place in a boardroom or some sort of meeting, and she's not actually out there doing anything. But the Leia I grew up really enjoying was the Leia who takes charge of the escape from the Death Star. It's the Leia who's giving orders at Echo Base.
Yeah.
It's the Leia who jumps on the speeder bike and takes off after the scout troopers in Return of the Jedi. And I think that's why her plotline in this book has always appealed to me.
That makes a lot of sense. It feels a little bit more like a return to her action hero days.
But you're right, the disguise probably is not the best.
Well, we can't have everything, I guess.
She also describes, she uses some sort of makeup to color her hair and color Chewbacca's fur. And just one of the weird things, I always found it odd that she says that her colors are boring looking compared to Chewbacca's, and yet all she did was put black in his hair, so he's black and brown. She put green in her hair. How is that boring?
Also, aren't they kind of the same colors to start with? Like, they both have brown hair.
Yeah.
a great deal of it.
It's odd. All right, so let's flash forward to the third storyline. I would say all three plots are sort of given equal importance. I'm not really sure there's an A plot, B plot, and C plot in this book. They're all pretty much given equal importance, but this one is the weirdest one with Han and Luke and Zviri. But the star of this plot line is Waru. It's weird. It's an alien. It's supposedly from another universe, which was something different for Star Wars. It's something that I'm not sure always work, but now, even in canon, we have another galaxy. So it's at least possible.
Reading, or rather, this time I listened to the audiobook on your recommendation, which was a lot of fun, and it's only 3 hours long. Reading it this time, I definitely had the thought of, this is original weird Star Wars. Like,
this
now
is going back to the old 70s Marvel comic Star Wars, because those were just as weird.
Now we have, like you said, there's another galaxy that characters have traveled to. Now we have the world between worlds. Now we have Mortis. Like, things that are very strange that in some ways Waru feels pretty adjacent to.
A lot of the stuff in the High Republic was really weird.
That too.
What was the deal that Waru had with Hethrir?
I have no idea. I'm going to take like my best stab at it. I think that there's this rumor or something that Hethrir, or maybe Rilau says it explicitly, that Hethrir did these dark rituals or something, and Waru was the output of that in some way. Hethrir was interacting with Waru and hoping to find a way to get the power that this being from a totally different universe, a totally different set of rules, had in Hethryr's estimation. And so I think part of the deal was keeping Waru alive long enough to figure out how to get that power, because Waru is struggling. Like, part of the reason that he kills and heals is sometimes he has enough juice and sometimes he doesn't, and he needs to kill in order to maintain himself in some way. I'm not clear on exactly what the physics of that, but that's okay. This is Star Wars. I think Hethyr was kind of a fool, though. I don't think that in the long run, Waru's power set is compatible with this galaxy. I don't think it would have given Hethyr anything that would have been useful to him. But like so many people who are taken in by the dark side, all they see is the potential of power and not the pitfalls, not the landmines. They just see the possibility.
I could see that. One of the things, I think it's Ralau that says that Hethyr hopes to find someone who is powerful enough in the Force to basically feed to Waru, to satiate Waru enough that then Waru can give some of that power back to Hethyr and make Hethyr even more powerful than what he is now. Again, another example of, I don't think Vonda and McIntyre really understands what the Force is, but that's as close as I came to kind of understanding what their deal is together. I don't want to criticize Vonda and McIntyre too much. I did a little bit of research before the show. She's a really accomplished award-winning author, but most of those awards were for Star Trek books, so more on the like hard sci-fi side than on this side.
Yeah, and for the first time in our lives, Tom and I have actually been watching Star Trek over the last, 6-8 months. My stepmom is big into Star Trek, and so we asked her to start showing us some Star Trek last fall. And there is something about this plotline that feels to me so much like an episode of original Star Trek from the 60s. And it makes a lot of sense, therefore, that she wrote for Star Trek.
Yeah, she won a few awards for it. What is it? The Hugo Award? That's one. That's an award for.
Wow,
yeah.
That's a prestigious award.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that on her bio when I was doing a little bit of research about a week ago.
Wow.
Just maybe not the best fit for writing Star Wars.
Maybe not, but they were trying a lot of stuff in the early 90s. This was only 1994. I mean, for the novels. It was the Wild West. Yeah, for the novels, there had been the Thrawn trilogy. I was looking up, the Jedi Academy trilogy was coming out in this same year.
Truce of Bakura was out.
Yeah, Courtship of Princess Leia. Everybody was just trying to figure out how to write Star Wars in a novel, which I think is totally different than when you do it on film and you allow so much of the visual to speak for itself and you don't have to explain how the Force works.
Sure, right. You just see something move and you hear that Force theme music go on in the background.
And you see Luke calling out for Leia under Cloud City and her recognizing it in the Force, and you understand, this is something that people who are connected in the Force can do.
So the one thing that sort of connects all of these stories is Hethyr. Each one of the plot lines is connected by Hethyr, Ralau, the Ferrarios. We learn late in the book that Tigris is Hethyr and Ralau's son. Even reading it the first time back in 94, I was 16. I think Tigris's parentage wasn't hidden very well, even reading it the first time. So we learn the backstory that Hethyr and Ralau trained with Darth Vader. The concept of Inquisitors was around at this time. It came from a 1989 Star Wars source book. From a certain point of view, could we consider Hethyr and Ralau two of Darth Vader's Inquisitors?
I think Hethrir, absolutely. I think Relau for a time, but it sounded like she just never embraced the dark side because she's a healer. So she never went down that path as much as Vader would have wanted her to. But Hethrir, totally. I mean, he has a different fancy title, Imperial Procurator of Justice. What a mouthful, but that's practically Inquisitor.
which is never really explained what that is. But
Nope.
you're right. You could basically say that is what an Inquisitor is. It's a procurator of justice against the Jedi.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Inquisitors, even in the broader definition of the word, not Star Wars related. Inquisitors, what do? They go interrogate people and figure out ways to malign them for the sake of their own controlling entity, basically. Like they're representing their government trying to put down propaganda and bad ideology, trying to steer people away from that. I mean, a procurator of justice sounds about like they would do the same thing.
So, what did you think of the characters of Tigris and Relau?
They were fine. I can't say that I was particularly drawn to that storyline. I think more so Tigris, much like apparently I just have a huge soft spot for children being abused and in danger, but I think that's just called being human.
You could tell Tigris was putting on a front. He was not as mean as what he was trying to be.
Yeah. And there's even sections from his point of view where he's going back and forth with himself about, oh, Hethrir said I could lay across his door tonight while sleeping, and that is a great honor, but he didn't say I must lay across his door. I can go see the child, Anakin. It's not forbidden to me. There was a lot of, you can see that he's really trying to make sense of his world and what's in his heart versus what he's being groomed into. And then he saves Anakin. Good job, kid.
Yeah, it's the one time that he actively goes against something that Lord Hethrir wants. His entire book, he's trying to make Lord Hethrir proud, trying to do something for the Empire Reborn. And as soon as Hethrir puts Anakin up on the dais, Tigris has this little monologue. Anakin doesn't want this. This shouldn't happen. And he runs up and he defies his lord. And he rips Anakin off of the dais from in front of Waru.
And then as the end result of that, Hethrir dies. So I'm sure there's going to be no trauma for that kid from this whole experience.
No. And his mother, who he thought was dead for 5 years, comes back.
And who he thought was stealing the Force from him. Because that's what Hethrir told him. Your mother was, every time she touched you or hugged you or whatever, she was stealing the Force from you. And that's why you aren't good at it.
Tigris is going to need so much therapy.
So much therapy.
So I always like to end with, are there aspects of the story, be it directly or thematically or whatever, that you'd like to see in future Star Wars projects?
I do like the idea of these objects in space for some reason interfering with Force abilities. I know it's so contrary, or I think anyway, my understanding is that it's so contrary to what Lucas's original vision of the Force was, but we also have the creatures in the Thrawn trilogy, Ysalamiri, who block the Force. I'm always really interested in stuff that does that. So I wouldn't mind seeing something like that brought forward. I love a bad place, so Crescia Station and the weird black hole and star situation actually really appeals to me. Like I said earlier, with the world between worlds, it kind of feels like anything is possible. I mean, time travel is possible, is what we've established with that. So bringing in a creature from another dimension, maybe not Waru, but something else is feasible, I think. I don't know that I will like it, but I feel like the precedent is set.
I like the idea in Star Wars of some sort of weird cult that's led by a Force-sensitive being.
Mm.
I think that would be interesting.
We see a little bit of that, I think, in Acolyte.
Oh yeah, the witches, the
Yeah,
witches.
they clearly have force powers, and it's something that the Jedi do not like. And that's the whole reason why they're there.
I'm not the biggest fan of the Acolyte. I thought a lot of the story was a little jumbled, but there were aspects that I thought were interesting. And it's one of those things where you remember when we were younger, TV shows used to be able to grow into the storylines that worked and ones
Uh-huh.
that didn't. You know, if you watch a lot of shows, their first seasons weren't very good.
Trash.
But usually by the end of the first season, they started to hone in on the storylines that the public responded to,
Yeah.
and it made it better. Some of the stuff with the witches weren't for me. Like, after a while, I couldn't care less about what this vergence was that they kept mentioning but would never explain what it was.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they were some sort of threat to the Jedi, or that the Jedi just believed they were a threat, that was what was interesting.
Yeah. But we don't get to grow into those things anymore. If you don't have a spectacular first season, you're done.
Right. Crystal, before we wrap up, one thing you did mention, you listened to the audiobook. I have contended that this is one of the very, very few stories, and this is going to sound like a terrible backhanded compliment. This is one of the very few stories that the abridged audiobook, the pacing and the flow, I think is better than the actual book.
I agree, 1,000%. I remember reading this book the first time, and for the first half, it had me, and then for the second half, I just got kind of bored. I didn't
It
feel
slows down a lot about halfway through. From about the halfway point to the 3/4 point, there's about a quarter of the book in there that it really slows down in places that just seems odd.
it should be continuing to ramp up, and instead we take a big like nap for some reason. So the audiobook was great. The narrator did I thought excellent voices for all of the characters. I especially loved his Hethrir. Sound effects, very solid. Got that Star Wars music in the background, and everything just moved so quickly. Like, I definitely noticed the stuff that was skipped, even though I haven't read the physical book in a couple of years. I remembered the stuff that was kind of brushed over, but I didn't feel like you lost anything really for all of that. It just felt like a kind of higher quality audio drama that gets you to the end.
So maybe even though I think this book is a little more maligned than it should be, maybe it would have worked better as a novella instead of a full-length novel.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff you could cut. I think the abridged audiobook proves that. For me, though, I don't malign this book nearly as much as The Courtship of Princess Leia or Dark Saber.
Oh, don't even get me started. That's number 0 for me.
It's a slippery slope. We don't have time.
No. That's because we got to wrap this up. But before we go, Crystal, I do have another Star Wars character group to share with everyone. Today's submission comes from Jeremiah, who says, "Hello, Aaron. I really appreciate the show and look forward to each episode. I'm a huge NASCAR fan, and I've been thinking for a while who I'd want on my team if I was an owner. Obviously, there's a lot of members on a NASCAR team, so I just settled on choosing 4 drivers and 4 crew chiefs. Crystal, would you please read Jeremiah's teams?"
Sure. For car 1, the driver is Jaina Solo and the crew chief is Han Solo. For car 2, the driver is Boba Fett and the crew chief is Grand Admiral Thrawn. For car 3, the driver is Poe Dameron and the crew chief is Wedge Antilles. And for car 4, the driver is Din Djarin and the crew chief is Luke Skywalker.
Jeremiah says, I know Anakin is probably a better driver slash pilot than most or all of these, but he is just way too much of a wild card for my taste. And I wanted to put Yoda as a crew chief, but imagining him over the radio, "Pit now, you will not," changed my mind. I can't do a Yoda, okay?
That was
I
a
can't
pretty
do a
good Yoda, honestly.
Jeremiah asks, anyway, I'm curious who you'd choose. Well, Jeremiah, I would say it's hard for me to imagine a team like this without Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Fair.
Anakin as the pilot slash driver, Obi-Wan as the crew chief. I would love to hear over the radio the two of them just arguing back and forth about what to do. I think that's the perfect NASCAR team.
I went a different direction when I was thinking about this because of the comment about Anakin being such a wild card. I thought, embrace chaos. Have Anakin Skywalker be the driver and have Mace Windu be the crew chief.
Oh, my Lord.
Nothing good will come of that, but it'll be fun to watch.
Oh, again, just listening in on the radio between the two of them.
They would block each other very quickly. There would probably be nothing to listen to.
Gold, Jerry. Gold. Excellent list, Jeremiah. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. Listener, if you'd like to contact the show, you can send me an email at swlegendslounge@gmail.com or send me a message on Blue Sky, Instagram, or Twitter at swlegendslounge. Send me your Star Wars character groups, your questions, and your comments. If you disagree with something I've said on the show, let me know. I'll read your opinion. If you disagree with something Crystal said on the show, send it to me again. I'll take the heat. She doesn't ever have to hear it.
You can send it to me. I don't mind. If I'm maligned for my opinions on the Crystal Star, I do not care.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today to talk about the book.
Thank you for having me. It was so much fun.
What's coming up here on the TK331 podcast? Because I guess you guys are just still trudging your way through the Young Jedi Knights series?
I meant to tell you, I think Young Jedi Knights has completely rotted my brain because I finished listening to the audiobook of The Crystal Star on Thursday night, and I was like, I don't know, didn't seem so bad. Which was a different reaction than I had the first time I read it. But yes, we are still working through those Young Jedi Knights books. We would have just had on May 3rd Jedi Bounty coming up on June 7th. It's The Emperor's Plague. And in the middle there, we'll be talking about Interlude at Darknell on May 17th, which is a short story novella by Timothy Zahn and Michael A. Stackpole.
Can you see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, as we're recording this, I only have one more of these things to read, and then I get to read Rogue Planet again, and then we'll get to do the New Jedi Order. So maybe I'll have a good time again soon.
Not to taint your opinion on Rogue Planet, but when I said there were about 7 or 8 that I like less than the Crystal Star, Rogue Planet is in that list of
That
7
is
or 8.
that is funny. I read Rogue Planet. It must have been in 2019, so probably 7 years ago now. And at the time, I thought it was fine. I apparently liked it okay. I didn't give it like a 1 star on Goodreads or anything. But I will be interested to see. I mean, I am so desperate for something that's not Young Jedi Knights that probably my opinion again will be more positive than it would otherwise be.
So at least 13 of your least liked EU books, at least 13 out of the 14 are going to be on your list.
Correct? Oh, 100%. These are basement tier for me.
So maybe all 14.
I'm just... yeah, I guess I can't say anything about the last one. I will say that the 2 that we read, you know, the 3 that finish it up, so Return to Ord Mantell, Crisis on Cloud City, or whatever it's called, they were okay. Like, but I would still put them in the basement. I just don't like them that much. Yeah, Anderson is not my favorite writer. It turns out. And now I have lots of data to prove that that is true across many different books.
Well, all I got to say is your all's episodes are just an endless well of entertainment for me. So, folks, if you want an entertaining Legends podcast, listen, especially right now when they're in the Young Jedi Knight series, to the TK331 podcast.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
If people want to contact your show, how can they do that?
They can reach out to us on Twitter at TK331podcast. They can email us, TK331podcast at gmail.com. Those are probably the best avenues to share your opinions with us.
You'll have to call me at some point when you're in your new Jedi Order series.
Yeah, Tom and I were just talking about it. We're definitely going to have you on.
Coming up on the next episode of this show, one of Luke's former students wipes out millions of innocent people while Leia survives an assassination attempt and a plot against the New Republic Senate, one that implicates her husband, Han Solo. It's The New Rebellion by Christine Catherine Rush, and you can look forward to that episode coming out on May 29th. Thank you so much for listening to the Star Wars Legends Lounge. I'm Aaron Motes. May the Force be with you. And remember, there's always a bit of truth in Legends.